Uh-oh. Hi, everybody. Wow, there's a lot of people there. Oh my gosh. We're sort of far away, but I feel pretty close because there's all these people here, and luckily we're pretty close to the same time zone.
This is a mic check. Hello, thank you. Ms. Williams, can you hear us?
We've got you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Okay, I'll try to speak slowly. I'm aware we are talking across a continent. What time is it there?
It's just 6 o'clock, or I'm sorry, 5 o'clock here, 5 p.m.
Okay, good morning to you then, because it's 6:30 in the evening here.
Well,
okay.
Luckily, I'm in Russia, and it's just 5 p.m., so we're actually pretty close.
Yeah, we are. A few opening remarks, with your permission, because we have 3,000 students here and a lot of dignitaries, so I will do the necessary courtesies. Good evening, everyone. This is a historic afternoon. It is made possible thanks to the untiring efforts of two institutions, the GRD College of Science and the Consulate General of the United States of America. The U.S. Consulate General has committed itself to a fabulous Experience America program that is proving to be a path-breaking collection of interactions, exhibitions, and experiences. We're deeply grateful to them for this gesture of cooperation to our institution, and we want to acknowledge all the efforts of not just the Consulate General but also of the country of the United States of America. The GRD College of Science owes its genesis to one of India's greatest educators, Dr. Damodaran, his son, Dr. Padmanabhan, his wife, Mrs. Geeta Padmanabhan, who is the secretary of the college, and who are the architects of the nationally acclaimed institution that GRD has become. The GRD institutions all put together account for close to 3,000 students. Our alumni is now spread all across the world. Face to Face, on which Ms. Williams is now appearing, is one of our college's most accomplished, celebrated, enduring programs. We have had over 150 luminaries visit, and the most far-reaching one, being as it is this one, as it is being webcast by the United States Consulate General all over the world. One more reason that makes this day extremely special to all of us here is, for the first time in Tamil Nadu, for the first time in Coimbatore, and to the best of our knowledge, for the first time in India, GRD introduces a revolutionary new state-of-the-art teaching tool, the EduSalt from Global Technologies. This is not just a pad or an iPad. It is a customized hardware and software tool. It is unique to GRD SCIB and begins a new chapter in the educational accomplishment of this institute. As a thrilling demonstration, Miss Sunita Williams will be appearing on the iPad. I wonder if you can see us, ma'am. You are also being tracked on 20 EduSalt pads that students of the college are now holding in their hands. We are hoping this is a stunning demonstration of the technology that will be extended to all of GRD students in a few days. I now invite Dr. Krishna Kumar Ramachandran, Director, to open the curtain on an extraordinary face-to-face. NASA is here, Sunita Williams is here. I don't know whether Houston is connected. Ms. Williams, can you see all the students holding up your picture on the EduSalt pad? Smile, ma'am.
That looks great. Wonderful.
Here's Dr. Krishna Kumar Ramachandran, Director of the Institute, to welcome Ms. Sunita Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, respected officers of the Consulate of the United States of America, Team GRD, members of media and special invitees, it is an honor and privilege to welcome you all to this historic occasion. We have frequently heard exceptional women being out of the world, being described as out of the world. For the first and probably the only time in your life, you will meet a woman who really, honestly, truly is out of this world. She is an astronaut. She is an astronaut, and not just any astronaut. She is an extremely accomplished one. At this moment, she is between missions at the International Space Station, which is why she is in Moscow, from where journeys to and from the ISS take place. Miss Sunita William has the highest amount of the time spent in space among any astronaut on Earth, and the highest number of spacewalks among any lady astronaut. One more thing, like all women who are out of this world, she has the most expensive wardrobe on Earth. Each of her space suits costs millions of dollars and is a biosphere to all to itself. And she has Indian ancestry, as her dad and his 4 people hail from Gujarat. So she is in so many ways one of us. GRD College, Coimbatore, India, and the US Consulate General of Chennai welcome Miss Sunita William for this historic event. Welcome on board, Miss Sunita Williams.
It's my pleasure to now invite Corina Ibarra-Arnold, who is Acting Public Affairs Officer, Cultural Affairs Officer and Public Affairs Section of the Consulate General of the United States of America. Corina?
Vanakkam, Kobai. Vanakkam, Sunita. I'm so excited. I just said hello to Sunita Williams. That's so awesome. Ms. Williams, thank you so much for talking to the students today. The consulate in Chennai is here in Coimbatore executing an event, a multifaceted event called Experience America, which showcases the best of the U.S. I hope you can see us because there are about 2,500 students here from all over the city of Coimbatore. We could not think of a finer person to address the students as you are a role model, especially for young women who dream about breaking barriers and making a difference. All of us have been really looking forward to this interaction for a really long time. Thank you for working with the U.S. Consulate General in Chennai to make this face-to-face really special. For the students, please join us at Codicia tomorrow and Friday to learn more about the U.S. and also join us on our Facebook website, because when you connect with us, we can stay connected to you. Nandri.
Ms. Williams, we are done with our courtesies and 3,000 students are waiting to hear you speak. Take as long as you want, and when you're done, we'll open the floor for questions. Over to you, Ms. Williams.
Well, first of all, thank you very much to everyone who has put together this program. It's quite an honor to be here, and it's a little bit, I think, intimidating when I look at the size of the audience. I'm excited to be part of your program, and I'm excited to be talking to the students. You guys are the future, and what we're doing in the space program hopefully will be opening doors for you to continue on and go to bigger and better places that we have gone to already. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, and I appreciate all the wonderful introductions. Thank you very much. I have been extremely fortunate to have had an opportunity to fly in space in 2006 and 2007, which took me to the International Space Station, and there I was part of the crew that put part of the space station together, which meant that we were able to do some spacewalks and use the robotic arm to install parts of the space station. And now, after that, I have the opportunity to, again, go back up again. And this will be a little bit different because last time I rode on a United States space shuttle. And this time I'll be flying up on a Russian Soyuz rocket, which means that there's a lot of training here in Russia, as well as our other international partners who are participating in the International Space Station, Canada, Japan, Europe. So we're traveling all over the place to train to go to the International Space Station. I'm hoping that in the future we're going to do something even bigger than that. We're going to go beyond low Earth orbit, and we'll be joining with lots of other countries, hopefully India, and we'll be joined in with all our partners I mentioned already and more. And we'll be leaving the planet not as people from a certain country, but as people from the planet Earth. So I'm excited for you guys. You're the age that is going to make that happen. So I'm excited to hopefully pave the road just a little bit for you all. Another thing that was mentioned today that I just want to reflect on is my childhood and growing up. My dad, of course, I think you know, is Indian. He's from Gujarat. He grew up in Gujarat. He went to medical school in Gujarat, and then he came to the United States. He met my mother in the United States, who's an American, so I'm half American and half Indian. So we had the luxury of growing up in a household which had lots of spicy food from India. My favorite, of course, I think you probably know, are samosas. And, of course, gulab jams and jalebis are a close second. And there was a comment about clothes. Well, yeah, I do have sometimes an expensive wardrobe from space, and I have also imported some Indian outfits as well, and have some nice Indian outfits that I like to wear at home. So I would say just from the travel from India to the United States, they're pretty expensive as well, but they're beautiful. So I appreciate that. I very much liked that I had a family that had multicultural influence in it. I think it is one of the most important things that I learned when I was growing up, is really to be accepting of others from different cultures. When I grew up in Massachusetts, we were really the only, in my small town of Needham, Massachusetts, we were probably the only Indian family, and people always knew us from our last name, which is Pandya, and of course our first names, which are somewhat Indian, Sunita, like you know. So it was interesting. They always identified us as the Indian family, and it was pretty much of an honor to be part of that group. I'd like to just talk a little bit about also the upcoming mission. I'm so happy that we got to interact at this point in time, because time is getting close for us. My crew is, again, an international crew. I've got a Russian Soyuz commander and a Japanese gentleman who's the flight engineer on the Soyuz, and then on the space station, I'll be the space station commander again, along with my Russian counterpart Yuri Malenchenko and Japanese counterpart Aki Hoshidy. We'll be joining another crew up there that is another couple Russians, Gennady Padalka, Sergei Revin, and Joe Akaba. So there'll be 6 of us when we arrive in July. I hope you're all going to be watching. It's pretty exciting, the launch from Kazakhstan, and it'll be fun to be up there for the next 6 months. And that will be a mission that's quite different from our first mission. The first mission, like I said, was part of the building of the International Space Station, but this mission will be primarily a science mission, as well as a test bed for new vehicles. We're having some vehicles, commercial vehicles, come to the space station probably for the first time, and we'll be grabbing them with the robotic arm and installing them onto the space station to resupply the space station with parts and pieces and food and clothes, and I'm hoping there'll be some samosas in there for me. Other things that we'll be doing up there, we'll hopefully be doing a spacewalk. We have, the space station is like a house, and every now and then something breaks and something goes wrong, so we have to fix it. So there's a couple pieces outside that just need a little bit repair at some point in time, and so hopefully we'll be going outside, and as we call it, outside on a spacewalk, to repair those parts. So it should be 6 months filled with a lot of robotics, some spacewalks, some installation, and a lot of science experiments. The space station is a national world laboratory. We have laboratories from the United States, of course, Russia, Japan, the Europeans, and a whole lot of experiments from countries all over the world. And I'm sure that there are some Indian experiments up there, and I hope that there will be some more in the future. With that, that's just a little bit of an introduction. Can I open up the floor to questions or answers, or any specific topics folks would like to talk about?
Can you hear me? Excellent. Thank you for that conversation with us, Ms. Williams. Can you hear us clearly?
Now I can. When I was talking, I couldn't hear anything, but now I can hear you clearly, yes.
Excellent. We're hoping the clarity stays true for the next 40 minutes. Here's the first question for you, which seemed to be the most popular question. You're the very first Indian on Earth to walk in space. How does walking in space feel like?
That's a great question. There's probably not a better feeling in and out of this world. Just to be real short and concise with it, but seriously, the space station and the space shuttle have windows where you can look out of. But it's like you are someplace where you're looking out a window of a house. When you're in a spacesuit and you are outside, it's like you actually were able to go outside of that window in the house and look around and walk around, and you can see potentially the beautiful trees and the beautiful lake that you can only see through your window, but you're actually outside. And to put it in real life, real perspective from the space point of view, you can look down out into the atmosphere, deep into the galaxy. I think one of the most impressive feelings was that space is actually 3D. It's not just black with a bunch of stars like you look at. It's actually 3D, and you can feel how it's just going on forever and ever. That's if you look out toward space. And then if you look down toward our planet, the first time I saw our planet in daylight was about 20 minutes into my first spacewalk. And I wasn't nervous beforehand, going and working out on the space station, but as soon as the sun came up and you could see the planet going by so fast, I got a little bit nervous, and I hung on to the space station pretty tightly just to make sure I wasn't going to fall. And then I had to convince myself, hey, you're not going to fall, you're floating in space, it's okay. But it was pretty impressive to see our planet below you. And one of the most impressive things about our planet that I saw on my very first spacewalk was the northern lights. And if you've ever seen them, they're green lights, usually up in in Alaska, for example, in the United States, you can see these things hitting the planet. But they were below us, and it was northern lights hitting the planet from below, which really made you feel like, wow, there is a whole lot of energy in the universe that we probably don't know much about, and we have a lot more to invent and find out and figure out and explore. And there's just so much more to do for us in the space industry, and I hope there'll be people in this audience who will be investigating that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now for questions from the students. Are you ready? Second question. Quick.
Hello, ma'am. It's an honor to be speaking to you right now. And my question to you would be, on your very first flight to space, what were your thoughts at liftoff?
Ma'am, was that clear to you?
Absolutely. What were my impressions at liftoff? Liftoff is amazing, and you can't even describe liftoff because you don't know what it's like, especially on your very first space flight. You know, you've been there before. I've been there at Kennedy watching my friends launch before in the space shuttle, and it makes me nervous. You can feel it, you can hear it, but we're generally about 3 miles away. But when you're sitting on top of that rocket, it's pretty impressive. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
we can. Yes, we can.
Okay. First of all, when you come up to the rocket, before you get in, you're at the bottom. You're where the engines are. And the rocket's pretty tall. And you're looking up above and you see this humongous rocket. And you can feel it for the first time like it's alive because they filled it with cryogenic hydrogen and oxygen. And so it's breathing. It feels like the whole thing is moving and shaking just there on the launch pad. That's even before you get in. And then you ride up a ladder, or an elevator rather, to get into the vehicle. And when you get in the vehicle, this is something we actually practice in a trainer at Houston or here in Star City. And it feels pretty normal because you practice always in a simulator. That felt fine. But then you're sitting there for a couple hours in your spacesuit, getting ready for the launch to happen. And to be honest with you, I never thought it was really going to happen. Then all of a sudden, at a couple minutes, 5 minutes before launch on the shuttle, the APUs, which are the auxiliary power units, start up, and that actually moves some flight control surfaces. Now remember, we're at the very top of the rocket. Those flight control surfaces are way at the bottom, and so you can actually feel the vehicle start to move around. And then 6 seconds before launch, the main engines start up, and the whole vehicle is shaking and rattling and groaning, and it also moves back a little bit, and you can feel that in your seat. And then at liftoff, the rockets, the solid rocket boosters, light off, and you feel like you're propelled into the sky, and you're pushed back a little bit. Now, you know, it only takes 8 minutes to get to space, but the first minute and a half is pretty loud and rumbling because of the solid rocket boosters. On the Soyuz, I think that's going to be a little bit different because it's a liquid system, and so it's just like liquid gas in your car, so there's not any air bubbles like there were in the solid rocket boosters. But from the shuttle launch, it was exhilarating. It was like a roller coaster, but it was like a roller coaster that you knew was going. There was no turning back. There was no getting off it. You're on your way to space. And right at 8 minutes, when the engines shut down, everything becomes quiet. And the funny thing is, also at that point in time, things that are unconscious, you realize that you're actually in zero gravity. Your arms start to float. As soon as you take off a glove, your glove floats away. As soon as you undo your helmet starts floating away. And so you really know that you're actually in space. It's just an incredible experience. And I think nobody was sad, nobody was scared, nobody was nervous. Everybody was excited and just really excited for the ride. It's just an amazing ride up to space.
Thank you, ma'am.
Question number 3. Who's next? Yes.
Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, could you please tell us something about the stringent astronaut selection process at NASA?
Okay. Yeah, sure. First of all, I think everybody who's in the astronaut office really believes and sort of knows that we're all sort of lucky, because there are a lot of people out there who are very talented and really well deserving of becoming an astronaut. I think when I applied, there was about 3,000 people who applied. I think the latest application go-around process was about 6,000 applicants. So there are a lot of people out there who are very talented who are applying. And so it's a pretty difficult process for the group who's selecting. The class of 2009, I was actually part of the selection process myself. So I have a little bit of insight. Some of the things that we're looking for in people for sure are, of course, their educational background. You know, I'm a pilot. I'm a helicopter pilot. I was a test pilot for a while, and that's one criteria. But we also have doctors and physicists and chemists and engineers. Of course, we actually even have a veterinarian in the astronaut office too. So any of those fields which are technical, math and science is very important in the background. And then folks who are somewhat adventurous, folks who have leadership qualities. You know, it's a small group of people that are going to be riding in a Soyuz, for example, 3 people. And there's only going to be about 6 people living on the space station at one point in time. If we send missions to, back to the moon or onto Mars, there'll probably be about 3 or 4 people. So we're looking for people who work well in small groups of people as leaders and as followers. And also, of course, there's medical criteria. I say medical because folks always say, don't you have to be in really good shape? Well, you have to be in pretty good shape because there's a lot of physical things that they ask us to do, like to do spacewalk training, is in a pool with a suit that weighs about 300 pounds. Not that you have to pick that up because you are in the pool in the water. You do have to go out and do sort of camping, like winter survival and water survival, just in case your to practice if your spacecraft has a problem and lands in some unplanned area. So there are some stringent things, but the medical criteria is pretty strong because you want to make sure that you're healthy in space. Remember, sometimes when we're up in the space station, we're our own doctors. There might not be a doctor up there. So hopefully, 1, we're all healthy, and 2, we learn a little bit of how to take care of each other up there. So the selection process looks at all of that criteria, the basic criteria, having some piloting skills or some flying skills or understanding mechanical things, because pieces and parts, like I said, break, and you need to be able to use tools and put them back together and fix them. Those are all parts of the whole, what we call the package that we're looking at of people when they're coming to apply. And then that's just the paper part. Then the other part is an actual interview. We bring folks to Johnson Space Center, and we have a physical interview process, as well as they go through a medical test. And then they have some like leadership, followership tasks type of games together to see how people interact with each other. Because, of course, you're in a small, what we sometimes call a small can, for about 6 months, so you have to be able to live with each other pretty well for that period of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Question number 5. Ready?
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, ma'am. My question is, who was your biggest support and who was your biggest inspiration, ma'am?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I do have a little surprise for you all today. One of the things that, you can talk to people when you're up in space. We actually have a phone, and we can call back to people at home and say hello, so I could say hi to my parents, of course, and my brother and sister. But one thing that I couldn't really talk to was probably one of my best friends. Let me show you real quick. Hold on. Gorby, who's there? Look at everybody. See everybody on the screen? So this is Gorby. He's my Jack Russell Terrier, my dog. Yeah, yep. And you asked what are some of your biggest supports. Well, I'll go back to the family and friends. My sister and my mom were especially good about taking pictures of my little buddy here and sending him up to me, because they knew I couldn't really talk to him, and I was very curious about how he was doing and what was going on back on Earth with him. I actually wrote home journals every week about what we were doing in space, and my mom and my sister and my dad and my brother, actually all of them participated in writing stories, made-up stories about what Gorby was doing back on Earth, and sent them back up to me as sort of a support. So, of course, I missed Gorby, but I knew he was in good hands on Earth, and this time I actually got the privilege of bringing him to Russia with me for the first time, and he had his picture taken, his official picture with me in my spacesuit. So that was sort of fun.
Okay, next question.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
My question is, was becoming an astronaut
a very early idea in your heart? Did you head towards exactly for that at your earlier stage?
Very interesting question, because there are a lot of astronauts who, from very beginning, like when they're 5 years old, they saw something on television, maybe read something or met somebody, and they've always wanted to be an astronaut. And for me, honestly, that wasn't the case. My family had really not an engineering background. Like I said, my dad went to medical school in India and was a doctor in the U.S. And so there wasn't a lot of exposure directly in my family to engineers. Of course, we all took math and science, and somehow my brother and my sister, they were very good at math and science, and they're older than me, so I had to be good at math and science too. You know how you have the same teachers in school, and you have to be good because they're expecting you to be as smart as your brother and sister. So we were all pretty good at math and science, and that just sort of opened the door for me for engineering, and I really actually liked it and went to a college which specialized in engineering. I didn't really know what engineering was either. I didn't really know how that applied to being an astronaut at all, honestly, to be totally honest. But from the Navy, I started flying airplanes, and one thing that I loved about flying airplanes was learning how to fix them and actually how they operate. And that has everything to do with being an astronaut. I didn't know it at the time, but that is exactly what test spacecraft are. They're like test planes, and it's how they work, how they're put together, how they're designed, and that's all engineering. And so honestly, I didn't know or think about being an astronaut until I was a test pilot, so I was about 26 years old. And then I had the opportunity to go to Johnson Space Center. At that point in time, we met John Young. I don't know if folks in the audience know who he is. He's actually been to the moon a couple times. He was the first guy to fly the space shuttle. Pretty amazing guy. And he talked about landing on the moon, and alluded to the characteristics of helicopters to landing vertically on the moon. And that was the first time in my mind that I thought, wow, I'm a helicopter pilot, then maybe I could land on the moon one day. And so maybe I'll apply for this program. So that was the very first time I started thinking about it. And I tell you this story because a lot of you might not know what you want to do right now, and that's okay. Find something that you really enjoy. I love flying. I love working on airplanes. And then somehow you become really good at it because you enjoy it, and so you concentrate on it. So if you guys find what you like to do, if you like math, if you like science, follow through on that. If you like arts, follow through on that, because you'll probably be really good at something that you like. So keep that in mind.
Excellent. Next question.
Hello, ma'am. What do you think that running on the Boston Marathon from the ISS?
Well, that was sort of a crazy... I'm sorry?
What led you run the Boston Marathon from the ISS?
This was sort of a crazy idea, and I'll still say it's a crazy idea today, but it was pretty neat. You know, one of the things that I really like to do, my sister and I ran a lot while our running partners, we run together quite a bit. And we grew up outside of Boston, and we used to always see the Boston Marathon run by, close by our house, and support it. When I was getting ready to go to college, I ran the Boston Marathon for the first time as what we called a bandit, because I didn't really have a number, and I just jumped in and did it because I thought, wow, I don't know if I'll ever have the chance to do this again. I'm moving away from my parents. And when I was getting ready to launch on the space station, I had run a marathon and I qualified, so I wouldn't be a bandit. However, I was going to be gone because our launch was in December and the marathon is in April. So I said to my sister, hey, I qualified. Is there any way that you can get a number or I can get a number with my qualifying time? And sort of as a joke, she called the director and got us numbers. Now, in all honesty, I had an idea in the back of my head that I thought it would be a good idea because I think physical fitness is really important. I talked a little bit earlier about the medical qualifications for being an astronaut. well, you're going to be fine medically if you live a pretty active lifestyle and you keep pretty healthy. And I think kids today need to just keep that in mind, that having an active lifestyle, being healthy, eating right, exercising is really a way of life, and it's something that actually as astronauts we do all the time. You have to work out 2 hours a day or so on the space station just to maintain your cardiovascular health as well as your bone density. Do you know in space your bones start to deteriorate just because you don't use them? You're not standing, and your hips start to go away, your feet start to go, your ankle bones start to go away. And so to supplement that or to prevent that from happening, we have to get on the treadmill and lift weights up there. So it's something we do all the time. You get used to it on the ground. You are healthy on the ground, which will allow you to actually get a space flight, which will allow you to fly in space, which means you have to work out more while you're in space. So it was sort of a thing to help promote the idea of even astronauts have to work out, and it's actually a really nice thing to do. Honestly, in space, it's a stress relief. You're working all the time. You're up in an environment that at any time, hopefully not a micrometer, I could hit the vehicle. So you're always thinking about what the next thing to do is, and it's nice to actually get on the treadmill and just go run for a little while. I would say 4 hours and 20 minutes is not relaxing, so I'm not sure I'll do that again. But I hopefully will do some fun thing for the Olympics, which is coming up this summer. If you guys have any good ideas about sporting events that we could do, I would love to hear. I would love to get some feedback from you. We were thinking about some type of space flying relay, but if you guys could think of something that we can do in space, let us know.
Excellent. Next question. Quick.
Hello, ma'am. My question to you is, what is a normal working day at the ISS like?
Oh, interesting question. We tried to keep, we have control centers, I'll just start it this way, all over the world. So you're in India right now, the time is a lot different from the United States. Likewise, in Russia, it's a lot different from the United States, as well as Japan. And so we try to keep the crews on a normal workday, but how do you do that, right? The spacecraft goes around the planet 16 times in one 24-hour cycle, so you're seeing sunrises and sunsets all the time also. So this adds a lot of complication and confusion. We try to keep us on Greenwich Mean Time, GMT, as much as possible. We try to keep it like an 8-hour workday with, on either side, there's time for exercise and there's time for eating, and then about 8 hours of sleeping time at night. And that we try to do that. We're able to do that without worrying about the sunrise and sunset, because we all have sleep stations, and so we can go into your own little sleep station where you can close the door, where it's quiet and it's dark, and you're in a sleeping bag. And so you can sort of get away from everybody for a little while. The windows all have shutters, so you can close the shutters to make the space station darker. So we try to get a good night rest, sleep up there. However, things happen. Other things happen, like other vehicles come to visit, and orbital mechanics dictate sometimes that a vehicle might arrive at 3 in the morning. And so we have to do this thing we call the sleep shift, which is changing our sleep pattern. It's just like flying, like from the United States to India. All of a sudden, you're a little bit tired, so you got to sleep in the next day to get acclimated. So that's what we do when we sleep shift to intercept different vehicles that are coming up to the space station. So we try to keep it as normal of a day as possible, but that doesn't always work out too good.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello, ma'am. What was the biggest sacrifice you had to make?
Wow. I think missing my dog was one big sacrifice, that's for sure. But the second sacrifice, what I really missed when I was up there, when I came back, was not having to take a shower. There's no showers up on the space station. So when I came back, I was really excited to sit and feel water falling down on me. While we're up there, we take like a sponge bath, just with a towel and some soap. We actually have what they call no rinse shampoo, so you can put shampoo in your hair and put a little water in it to move it around and stuff. But it doesn't. You never feel like you really have had a really nice shower. So when I came back, one of the things I asked was when we go back to the moon, because it does have some gravity, I hope we can design some type of shower that will work with moon gravity. Because a shower is a really nice thing to have after a while.
Hold on. Ma'am, we have a couple of questions that have come in online from the worldwide webcast of your current streaming conversation. So we'd have Corinne ask them to you at this point of time. These are online
Absolutely.
questions and your answers are visible on the web.
The question is, hi Sunita, does the burgeoning trend of space debris creation threaten space activities? How far are we from adhering to the maintenance of outer space as the common heritage of mankind? That's a hard one, sorry.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a difficult question. I'm trying to formulate a concise answer. I think the first part was about space debris. Is that correct?
The other question had to do with your physical training, but you've already answered that. And what are the numbers of hours you put in every day during your astronaut training?
Okay, well, let me just go back to the very beginning question. I think part of it was about space debris, and yeah, absolutely, there is space debris in the area where we're flying. Our vehicles are pretty strengthened on the outside and fortified, so we don't necessarily worry about it on a everyday basis. And actually, there's a group of people on the ground who are tracking anything that's about a softball, baseball size to move the space station in case we encounter something that size. That would be pretty catastrophic. And so we're able to move the space station with what we call a reboost. Or actually change its attitude so that we'll avoid anything like that. However, when we're out on spacewalks, we do see evidence that small micrometeorites have hit the space station. We see little divots where these things have made indents on some of the metal that's out there. So yeah, of course it is an area where we have to worry about, and that's why our spacesuits are so built so strongly and with so many layers as well. The other question you mentioned was physical exercise. Yeah, that does take up a little bit of time, and we're trying to get better at that. Part of one of the experiments is actually doing a more intense physical fitness protocol to maybe decrease the amount of time that we have to work out in space, because what we'd like to do is actually do more science experiments up there. And if we're on our way back to the moon or onto Mars, we're going to have to build smaller equipment to work out on. Right now we have a treadmill. We have a resistive exercise device, which is pretty big. It's about the size of a table. And all that stuff has to get smaller to fit in a spacecraft that's going to go on longer missions, or we're going to have to figure out a different way, beside for exercise, to maintain our physical health. And the third question is about what's the day like as an astronaut. That is a great question. I never feel like I'm at work. It's pretty amazing. One day we might do a simulation in the Soyuz spacecraft that we're on a launch, and we have some emergency and we have to figure out how to maintain that. The next day we might be practicing for a spacewalk in our big pool, the neutral buoyancy laboratory. The next day we might be taking a class, learning about some science experiment that we're going to be doing up in space, talking to the investigator, probably the world-renowned investigator in that area of science. The next day we might be in the space station simulator, working out a whole day of how we would actually do work on the space station, and maybe doing some maintenance tasks where we might have to change out a CO2 cartridge or the oxygen generation system. So every day it's pretty varied. Right now we're about 6 months, we're in the 6 months time before launch. And so our tasks specifically for when we'll be up there are becoming defined, very defined, like our spacewalk, for example, the robotic stuff that we're planning on doing. And so those we actually practice a couple more times, probably once a week or once a month at least, to make sure all those tasks we're all ready to go for that. But I tell you, every day on the space station is different. Every day during training is different. It's an exciting and fun job, and like I said, it doesn't really feel like a job most of the time. It feels like you're working together with good friends from all over the world. And not to mention, there's a lot of language training as well. I think everybody there has a little bit of a step up because everyone in India knows a couple languages from my experience there. It's pretty incredible how talented everybody is at speaking different languages, and that's one of the criteria for flying on the International Space Station, of course, because it's a multi-language vehicle. So you guys definitely have a step up. I'm looking forward to seeing some of you on the space station in the future.
Hello, ma'am. How do you keep track of day and night on the ISS?
It's a good question. Sometimes you can forget about day and night just because we have really good lights on the space station and we're able to work whatever time. But we do have windows as well, and the window shutters are generally open, and so you can get the feeling like a shadow is coming across the window when it starts to become nighttime. And I think that's a pretty special time. You know, I used to love it when it was daytime so I could look out the window and take pictures because you can see parts of the world, then you can you know where they are, obviously, because of land masses, because of mountains, because of colors in the ocean. You can figure all that out. But actually, by the end of my mission, I thought one of the really spectacular things was looking at the world when it was nighttime, and you can see that different countries use different types of lights. The colors of the lights are even different. The patterns of where the people live and how people live and how they create cities is different, and you can see all that at night. And my big impression from when I was leaving was, if I was ever to go to another planet, I would like to take an orbit at night so I could see where potentially lights are, if the beings there used lights, because there are places on Earth that I thought, nah, there's no way anybody could live there. But at night, you'd see lights, and so you know somebody is there. So my impression is when you go to another planet, make sure you take an orbit in the daytime and in the nighttime.
Next question. Is your microphone live? Come here. Come here.
Hello, ma'am. My question to you is, how often do you get to talk to your people at home from ISS?
Actually, it's pretty good. Usually we have what we call KU, which is a type of antenna that we have, KU coverage, probably 45 minutes out every hour and a half, out of every orbit or so. And so during that time, it's pretty neat. We actually have a green light on the computer that comes up and it says, hey, you can call at this point in time. Now, of course, everybody is sort of busy, so you don't always get a chance to call. So it's pretty convenient, and it's gotten, of course, better over the years. One of the things that we're going to try an experiment on while we're up in space this time, though, is actually not having communication. Because, you know, as we leave the planet, as we go farther and farther from low Earth orbit, there will be bigger gaps of lack of communication. Right now, it's only about a second and a half or so from the space station through Houston to, you know, a phone wherever around the world. But if we start going out, to Mars, we're going to potentially get a 20-minute lapse in communication. And so we're going to practice that on the space station, see how people can work with. So you can't ask a question right away. You can't call home right away, and to see how that's going to work. That's going to help us build a smarter spacecraft. It's going to help us get people used to living like that, because right now we have the luxury calling home quite often if we want to.
One more question. One more.
Hello, ma'am. My question to you is, will you apply to be a part of the mission to Mars?
First of all, I'll just say quickly, absolutely. But you know, there was a little boy who asked me that question, and I'm wondering, are you the same little boy? Was probably about 5 years ago. But the question that little boy had asked me was, would you go if it was a one-way trip? And I thought that was pretty profound. If we had the technology to go to Mars and come back safely, absolutely. Can you imagine what our planet would look like as you're getting farther and farther and farther away and it starts to just look like a star, like Mars looks like to us today? That would just be incredible. And then the ride home, which would be even more awesome, would be to see that star growing and growing and growing into our planet. I mean, that would just be spectacular. Not to mention, I think putting humans on Mars would be the next step after robots, because robots, you know, once they find something interesting, a whole bunch of people on the ground have to figure out what they found and figure out how the next move would be to have the robot do the next thing. Where a human on Mars could make that decision right away, and we could find out stuff a lot quicker. And with the human eye, we can actually make some judgment calls about whether or not this is important or not important. So yeah, I would definitely go to Mars. Now, to answer the second question, would I go if it was a one-way trip? I would definitely go if it was going to help humankind here on Earth. It was going to help us figure out how we can more smartly use our planet and live on our planet and live together on our planet.